Shalom. This week, as we begin reading the third book of the Torah, the book of Vayikra, we are treated to a very salty Torah portion. The opening chapters of the book of Leviticus describe the procedures for the ancient sacrifices that were offered first in the tabernacle in the wilderness and then in the temple in Jerusalem. And there is one verse that appears in the instruction manual for this sacrificial system, and it reads as follows: Al kol korbancha takriv melach. On all of your offerings, all of your sacrifices that you bring to God, you should put salt. Why? What is the significance of pouring salt? We know that salt is part of the later system for koshering meat, of helping to draw out the blood from meat. But even in the meal offerings that were offered as sacrifices in the temple, there was salt. And there have been many attempts to explain this. Midrashic attempts from Torah commentators. One comment by the Ramban suggests that salt is, of course, a preservative. And by sprinkling salt on the sacrifices, you were in effect saying in a symbolic way that it is the ongoing rituals of the Jewish people, the ongoing service to God that preserve us and that keep us going. I have another explanation that I'd like to share with you, though. When we think of salt, we think of the salt water that will be on our Seder tables, and that salt water, symbolizes tears, human tears, the tears of our ancestors as they went about their daily lives in bondage. So what do tears have to do with a sacrifice, a gift that is brought to God? Well, some of the sacrifices are brought out of a sense of guilt for atonement in times of sadness and crisis and remorse. And so those tears make sense, and you understand why you need to have salt. But there are also sacrifices for happy occasions, the Todah offering for Thanksgiving, an offering where you are in a state of happiness and elation and gratitude. Salt must be part of that recipe as well. And if we think about it in our lives, when do we feel closest to God? A korban, a sacrifice, means that which brings you karov, close to God. We feel closest to God in times of pain and in times of joy. When we are sad and when we are hurting, we need God in our lives, and those are the tears that we shed that bring us close to God. But in times of great joy, whether it's a bar mitzvah or a wedding, that's also a time for there to be tears. Tears enhance the flavor. Salt is not only a preservative, it's a flavor enhancer. And many of us sometimes are embarrassed to cry out of sheer happiness, but we ought not to be embarrassed at those moments. It's the fullest expression of human joy, just as tears are the fullest expression of human sadness. So many of us are very happy to pepper our texts with all kinds of emojis, happy and sad, tearful faces. But in our lives, we're more guarded with our tears. Sometimes in sadness, we feel it's okay, but in happiness and happy occasions, don't go crazy crying when you're happy. But in a text, you might. So what I would suggest to you this week, Al kol korbancha takriv melach, in every moment of exaltation when we are close to God, bring some emojis into your real life. Don't be afraid to cry. Shabbat Shalom.